Patrick. Can you hear me?
I can now. Thank you. You know, it's amazing that if you don't turn on your speaker here on your computer, you won't hear it. So that's what was wrong.
It is amazing.
Well, welcome, Dr. Vickie. I'm sorry that I skipped over your introduction. I'm going to do that right now if you don't mind. Dr. Vickie is a retired general surgeon, and after many, many years dealing with thousands of patients, she decided that she wanted to engage with people who want to engage with doctors. And as you can see, she's appeared on lots of different TV and radio programs and magazines. She's got articles all over the place. Her books are all over the internet. And her latest book, by the way, just came out, right, Dr. Vickie?
It did. It's called The Myth of the Rich Doctor. And right now I'm at Ruth Chris's Steakhouse in Charlotte. I'm going to be speaking with a group of doctors about this book.
Oh, really? You're in Charlotte right now. Good. Well, thank you so much. Hey, how much time do you have? When do you need to get off?
Oh, tomorrow at 3.
All right. So you can be on here most of the webinar. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. I might have to go to a different corner. There might be some noise, but I'll do my best not to be disruptive here. You're
coming through just fine right now. By the way, she's also on the editorial board of MD, I forget what it's called, Medical Economics. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Physicians Money Digest.
Physicians Money Digest, sorry. Well, anyway, so let me put her picture up on the screen here as she talks. And Dr. Vickie, I actually wanted to address some questions directly to you. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right into the very first one here. This one is what a lot of people don't really have a good grasp of, and that's why I love having you on a webinar like this, because as a doctor, you know that doctors have a reality that's different from what most people's image is of that doctor, right?
Right, and I think what most people don't understand is, you know, they think of the doctor as this smart, competent person, and when it comes to your health, they are. But the big surprise is that we doctors do not do very well with money. We are not very business savvy, and so the reality is that you as a licensee will know much, much more about running a business than doctors do. And it's actually a little bit embarrassing to be so smart and to be so dumb about business.
Well, you know, I even asked that to some of the folks who come to our training classes here. I ask them, if you've worked for a doctor before or know one, maybe you have a relative, they're not the sharpest tack, you know, that's out there as far as a business, right? They're not as good business people as you'd think they should be.
No, we do not learn, you know, any business principles. You might think, well, gee, somewhere in medical school or residency, if doctors are borrowing a lot of money to go through medical school, surely they should think through how they're going to repay that debt and how to build wealth over the lifetime. That we don't get any training in business. You know, if a doctor's in private practice, they need patients just like Apple needs customers. Yet we don't get any courses about patient acquisition, about patient-centered care, so that patients will tell their friends and send their friends to you. Historically, that's worked okay. You know, if you took good care of patients, that was enough. But today that's necessary, but not sufficient to build a thriving practice. And so today, doctors are scrambling to catch up on new skills in marketing and sales and basic finances.
Yeah, and they don't get that in medical school. I mean, you guys go to school for like, what, 40 years or something like that, isn't it? And you still don't have any courses on how to collect the money that's due you from the insurance companies and from Medicare.
Well, you might be surprised at what we do and do not learn in medical school. I can tell you that my entire nutrition training in medical school was 4 hours. We never talked about money.
Is that right? So
Yes.
I figured that there wasn't a whole lot of training in nutrition either, because most of the folks come to you not to learn how to stay well, but how to get well because they got sick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's a quote that I found on a website out there, Doctor Patient, it's called the Doctor Patient Medical Association Foundation. It says 2 out of 3 doctors say they are just squeaking by or in the red financially. Have you found that to be true?
I have. And, for this book, The Myth of the Rich Doctor, I've gone out and spoken with literally hundreds of doctors, probably approaching 1,000 now, just getting their stories. And I think that people would be really, really surprised at the way in which doctors struggle. So, the car that a doctor drives, the house that they live in, it's, they might be projecting sort of a financial lie. There's a whole lot of doctors out there who are living month to month, or they're getting behind every month. They feel like they've got to project this image of success, but their financial reality might be something quite different. And, we're talking about people who could be excellent, excellent doctors. But if you don't know how to manage the business part, boy, you sure do have to struggle. And Patrick, I'm so glad that we wrote our book, because that is the point that you made in the New Thriving Medical Practice, that without adequate cash flow, you just cannot think about running a thriving practice. The Mass General Hospital, also known as man's greatest hospital, did an informal study, and what they found out is that doctors who were worried about money have impaired clinical judgment. It's like, that you shouldn't text and drive, that's distracted driving. But when doctors are worried about, gee, how am I going to meet my payroll this month, that's distracted doctoring.
Right.
So it can kind of spiral out of control, and you can help turn that around.
Yes, and one of the quotes that I found here that starts talking about the whole subject of outsourcing is from Doug Brown. He's the managing partner of an organization called Black Book Research. And he says rising healthcare expenditures and the complex technology or staffing requirements creates an urgent demand for cost-effective outsourcing solutions in physician practices across the country. So, as a research foundation, they have found that doctors are struggling with all the complex things about technology, new computers, new software, and of course the staffing requirements, keeping up with good people, who can actually do the billing. You had an experience with outsourcing your billing when you were in practice. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I got out of residency, I went into private practice with just one other partner. I actually had offices at 2 different hospitals, and then this multidisciplinary breast clinic formed at one of the hospitals. So I broke out on my own. And the billing had been so problematic with my first partner that one of the decisions I made is that I am putting my billing in the hands of the professionals from the very beginning. Like, I don't do my own taxes, and I think it's kind of crazy for people to do their own billing. So it's a choice that I made right from the get-go, and it's a choice that I'm so pleased that I made.
Yeah, and most doctors don't even think about the fact that it might be cheaper to outsource it. They just feel like having the control, I think, there in their office gives them, more control over their money, right? Turning that over to a stranger outside their office seems a little weird, but we found that about, almost half of the doctors out there have outsourced or have outsourced in the past. I had a licensee tell me just this morning that he was talking to a doctor, and the doctor said, I haven't even thought about outsourcing, but now that you brought it up, maybe I should look into that. And so he did a practice analysis for that doctor, and sure enough, he was spending about $10,000 more per month than what it would cost him if he just outsourced it to somebody for a percentage of what was collected.
And here's another really important point. You talked about control, but quite often it's the illusion of control. Doctors are the target of theft and fraud. And to have control, what you really want to do is put in place a set of checks and balances. I know when I was with my first partner, his office manager went on vacation, and so we hired a temp, and we just thought she was this lovely woman. She would sit with the elderly patients in the waiting room and help them complete their paperwork. Well, a couple of weeks after she left, the employment agency called and said, sorry to tell you this, but that temp we sent to you is a convicted Medicare felon. So,
Oops.
oops. So you never really know, but something that doctors really do worry about are ways that money does not get in their pockets. Not following up on rejected claims is one, but there's a lot of people who dip their hands into doctors' money. In fact, I have a buddy who had her entire retirement embezzled by her office manager, and it was gone before she really took a serious look at it.
Oh my goodness, what a shame. Here's a great quote from that same organization. The U.S. market for physician billing outsourcing is expected to report an overall 42% growth rate over the period of, quarter four of 2016 to quarter one of 2019. Now, let's see, this is 2017. So, we're seeing that ourselves, by the way, Dr. Vickie. It's amazing. Our licensees all across the country are signing up more doctors than they ever have before. And I don't know what that is related to right now. What do you think? Why do you think
do.
most?
I do. It's the complexity. There's a new coding system. The consequences of miscoding are more profound. Doctors are behind in retirement planning. They can't afford to leave 30% of their revenue on the exam table. They've really got to collect it. So they're worried about today. It's not a do-it-yourself job, but they're also looking forward at tomorrow. And many of them know that they've got some catch-up to do to be able to, retire sometime before they're, 80 years old.
Yeah, it might take them a long time to catch up, wouldn't it? Here's another quote of the, let's see, let me put that on the screen. Of new outsourcing clients reported decreased number of rejected claims when they outsourced, and decreased time that it takes to receive payment from a payer within 2 months beginning the outsourcing implementation. So, just overall, from all the research that's been done, doctors are just not aware of this research. I think it's an educational process, don't you?
I absolutely do. And basically what we're talking about is financial literacy, right? There are doctors, if God forbid you've ever known anyone who's been critically ill, who's been in the intensive care unit, you know that the nurses keep track of everything that goes in and out of a patient's body. It's called the I's and O's. And a doctor would never dream about managing a patient without these I's and O's. Yet, most are clueless about how money flows in and out of their practice. They've got more important things to think about, patient care. I mean, when I had my own surgical practice, that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that I took good care of patients, and I delegated everything else away. That's probably not a smart strategy. I kind of got lucky, I think. But it's risky business. And doctors they can't afford to do this anymore.
Well, I think it's hard for them to delegate because they are so smart. They think they know what's best. I can relate to that, because as the CEO of our company, I'm always thinking that I should be doing something when I really need to learn how to delegate.
Well, I think it's hard for all competent people. And I think also in the past, so what if, somebody's dipping into 10% of my revenue? I'm still doing okay. But that's not the case anymore. The profit margin is getting narrower and narrower. And, doctors, again, they just don't know what's coming in and going out, and they're paying the price for that. So just having their finger on the pulse of what's going on in their practice is critical now.
Well, I think that's why the book is so important as an educational tool for licensees to use in contacting doctors. This new thriving book that you and I wrote here recently is just basically the quotes that we have our licensees highlight and tab like this in the book. Is just amazing how the doctors will call the licensees back up after leaving this book, and basically they say, you know what, I didn't think I had problems until I saw your highlighted passages in your book. I think I do need to have some sort of analysis of my practice to see if it would be wise, to outsource.
Yeah. So Patrick, remember that pie chart that I shared with you? Any piece of knowledge that you have falls into one pie piece. There are things you know. There are things that you don't know. There are things that you know, but they're wrong. There are things you know and ignore, and there are things you don't know.
Yeah.
And with most people, when it comes to business and, how to run profitable companies, most of their information falls into the know you know and know you don't know. But with doctors, they are sort of largely in that dangerous zone. So, licensees really help doctors understand the complexities and graciously bring to doctors' attention that perhaps there are questions that doctors should be asking that they are not asking.
Yeah, very likely that there are. It's just that we don't know, how many of them are in trouble right now. Hey, let me just ask a little survey here. Folks, why don't we do this? You can use that little hand that you see somewhere on your screen there. There should be a little image of a hand. Anyway, if you'll use that to raise your hand and answer to this, how many of you who've worked with doctors in the past or at some point you have been involved with a medical office know from what you see there in the office that doctors probably need help and they're struggling and they don't know as much about business as they think they should? Let me see your hands if those of you who actually have worked with doctors. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks have raised their hands so far. Yeah, it's just amazing, isn't it, what's going on out there. Dr. Vickie, let me move on here to the next question. Number 2 is what are some of the financial pains facing doctors? So can we start with the whole situation with the Healthcare Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, whatever we're evolving into here in the United States? What do you think that is happening out there right now? Is that affecting doctors?
Well, we know it's affecting doctors, and this is well documented. So it's pretty expensive to insure 30 million Americans. I mean, the estimated cost is in the trillions. And how are we going to pay for that? Well, there's taxes. Doctors are asked to build an efficient infrastructure, which means that doctors are expected to invest $50,000 to $100,000 in electronic medical records. The cost of goods and services are going up, and fees are going down. So this is an expensive undertaking, and doctors sort of feel like it's disproportionately on their shoulders. So we are seeing, epidemic number of doctors who are burning out when they're asked, what's the problem here? A lot of it is about, not being able to interact with the patients. They interact with the computer, and a lot of it is about money. They want to make more money. They don't feel like they're getting compensated fairly. And what's interesting, Patrick, is that all of these things are problems that your licensees can help. Because, I can tell you, I am not that computer literate. And it gets so frustrating when something happens with the computer and then, who do you call? Your teenage son? He's in college now. He doesn't like answering the phone anymore.
You're speaking from personal experience there, aren't you?
I am. But that's part of the frustration for doctors. They don't want these electronic medical records. My mother was in the intensive care unit, and it was really interesting. So she was in a bed in the center of the room, and the nurse's computer screen was in the opposite direction on the wall. So instead of the nurse actually physically looking at my mother, she was looking at the computer. And I thought, that is just crazy. And, a lot of doctors feel like this electronic medical record is sort of, invading the doctor-patient relationship. They really, really don't like it.
Yeah, I had one doctor do the same thing with me. He brought in his little laptop, but he just turned over there to the counter behind him, and of course I wasn't even looking at him, and he was asking questions. So it's very impersonal. That's one of the reasons I think that maybe they've avoided the whole electronic medical records, because they felt like, oh, now I got to invest in computers in every room and so forth. The nice thing about our system, of course, is that the doctor can use an iPad and walk right in and interface with the patient and just hold it up in front of him and just, talk to the patient eyeball to eyeball, but still be looking at the iPad and tapping on the buttons that are there to enter the information that he needs to document everything about that. So the status quo is no longer sustainable. That's one of the things you told me one time, and I made a slide out of that. See the little hamster wheel? It's a hamster and a wheel. All right, now let's ask this question, because a lot of the folks on the webinar today are wondering about how, what are some of the opportunities for me personally? In other words, okay, I get it. There's a need out there, and outsourcing is one of those things that doctors don't understand. But you said one time to me, Dr. Vickie, something that I just, again, I made another slide of that because it just really jumped out at me. You said, Patrick, the physician's pain is your opportunity. And I thought, that's a good analogy, because the doctors find out, don't they, by poking their patients, and does it hurt here? No. Does it hurt here? They look and they examine. And that's what we have to do. Our licensees are taught to go in and do a free practice analysis. That's what we need, is the opportunity at least to find out if the doctor does have pain, because if they do, we just happen to have the answers to the pain.
They do, and they do have pain. There's no question about that. The Nobel Prize in Economics was just awarded a week ago, yesterday, and it went to a man whose specialty is behavioral economics. How do we really make the choices? The doctors who decide to outsource their billing, how do they really do it?
Yeah.
And what he says is that we make emotional choices. And if you just push on that pain button, and you tell doctors how much they have to lose, it's really a way to inspire them to say yes to outsourcing billing.
Yeah. Here's a great article I ran across on Medical Economics magazine. It says, if you operate a medical practice, it says you should be outsourcing. I mean, that's the headline. And this is a site that's for doctors. Doctors go and read the articles here. And anyway, this just came out in July. And it says in the article, as if giving your key employees menial tasks isn't enough to consider outsourcing, the ever-changing landscape of the medical industry should be the deciding factor. It goes on to say, according to a 2016 Deloitte survey, 59% of respondents outsource to cut their costs. Those who outsource, 59% want to cut their costs, and 57% of them outsource to focus on their core business. Isn't that what really is taking away from their core competency? Is they've got part of their staff, at least, focused on trying to collect the money that they've already earned.
Right.
And doctor,
so
isn't that their core competency, seeing patients?
Personally, I think 100% of doctors should outsource their billing, or 99%, the same amount that outsource their taxes. It is just kind of crazy to try to deal with the complexity. And doctors are smart people. All they need to do is sort of see the situation in a new way, and the light bulb will go on. If they've got a buddy who, outsourced their billing, and suddenly, oh wow, I can pay for the kid's private school without having to tap into my line of credit in the bank. I mean, they see it, they feel it,
yeah.
And they tell their friends about it.
Yeah, but like you said, it's not one of the key things that they think about when they walk in first thing in the morning, because, I mean, let's face it, if they do billing in-house, they are collecting money. Obviously, they couldn't stay in practice. They're getting some money in. They get checks, from insurance companies every day, I'm sure, in the mail, and yet that may not be everything that they could be collecting. I know you said in the book there somewhere, Vickie, that that some doctors are losing up to 30% of their revenue because they're not billing correctly and don't know how to work with the rejections and so forth, and their rejection rate on those claims are, sometimes really, really high. I mean, in the 30% level there. Nationwide, that's the average. So when we tell them, with our system, because it's high tech and we have our own clearinghouse and so forth, that it can be less than 2%, most of them don't believe that at first. They have to see it, of course, and it takes a month or so to get that showing up. But when it does, the doctors are just blown away by what we can do for them. I don't know if this
Yeah.
goes. Oh, I'm sorry.
May I say something, Patrick?
Sure. Yeah.
So I told you that I'm in Charlotte here, about to talk to a group of doctors, and this talk really is about doctors' global financial picture. But if there are doctors in private practice, probably one of the most effective ways of building wealth is to outsource their billing. It happens quickly and it's dramatic. And another thing, just as a by the way, doctors are not skilled at minimizing their tax burdens. They're paying way too much in taxes. So when the licensees become very successful, they too should learn how to minimize their tax burden so that they can put more money in their pocket. But those two interventions for doctors in private practice are very important.
I am a firm believer in paying only the money that's actually legally, due. Why would you pay any more? It's your money, your family's money, right? And
right.
So we are keen on that, believe me. And some of our licensees even connect with financial advisors in their area, because they are both trying to help the doctor with cash flow. One's trying to help more money come into the practice, and the other one is trying to make sure that that money is invested correctly so they can retire.
And the financial advisor and the licensee can bring value to each other and mutually benefit the physician also.
Yeah, and you are a big proponent, I know, of partnering like that with people who are interested in helping doctors, because I've never seen anybody with such a heart, Dr. Vickie, as you have. A couple of years I've known you, that you're always wanting doctors to thrive. And so I think it's great that it kind of ties in with what we're doing, what you're doing. I'm going to show here a tool that we came up with for the licensees, that you came up with a couple of weeks ago, that I think is just fantastic. I call it the secret sauce. And one of the secret sauces is having this book that you and I have published, and allowing the licensee to actually be a part of this book. And the way we do that is we actually have the licensee, their name on the cover of the book and inside the book. Now I'm going to illustrate here on a slide just so the folks attending this can see, but as you see there on the screen, folks, you can have your name. It shows up on the title page on the front of the book as having written the foreword. Now the foreword is a standard foreword that we've written. It's pretty generic. And it can be changed, but you'll see that it'll probably work in 99% of the cases. And it basically says, hey, if you need some help, I'm the guy that can help you, and here's a book, and we're just giving this to you to educate you on some of the things that are important. And then the licensee actually gets to put their name and contact information at the end of that foreword. So folks, you actually become I guess you could call yourself an author, right? Because you've actually got your name on the front of the book. It carries huge credibility.
So I think, Patrick, well, first of all, it really does work, but I want to make a couple of points here. The first is that you are always looking for new ways to help your licensees become more successful. So you, Uncle Patrick, made this investment so that this tool would be available for the licensees. And you're constantly looking for new ways. And it's not like you're sending your licensees a bill. It's just part of the package, is your ongoing commitment. And then the second thing that I wanted to say is that doctors, they don't want to work with the sales rep, right? They want to work with the expert. And the single best way to establish your expert positioning is having your name on the cover of the book. That's the guy who wrote the book.
Yeah.
Now you're really standing apart from your competition.
Yeah. Now I'm moving this to the front here on the slide, and zooming in on it so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about there. At the bottom, you see right under me and Dr. Vickie's names, forward by, and your name would be right there, comma, CMRM. Now that's that certified medical revenue manager that I talked about earlier, that you're certified. And so it just, if I had had this when I first started, my wife started billing back in the late 80s, Dr. Vickie, the credibility of being your name on the front cover right there with a doctor, it doesn't get any better than that, really, from a marketing standpoint, as far as I'm concerned.
And it doesn't. And let me just also say that, I mean, I'm a pretty humble gal, but what we do know is that the most influential person in a doctor's life is another doctor. And part of the value proposition with ABS is that you get to say, I have a relationship with this doctor. Basically, when you go out and you market and you acquire doctor clients, it's not just you alone. You've got an entire national organization and physician behind you.
Well, Vickie, we don't say this enough, but we are the nation's largest network of medical revenue managers. Our licensees process claims for thousands of doctors from coast to coast, collecting millions of dollars in revenue that they wouldn't have collected otherwise. And as you know, we, as a part of the Medical Revenue Management Association of America, we have just recently appointed you as the head, the director, the chair of our advisory board. So I'm just thrilled to have you on board for that.
And I'm thrilled to be associated with it because we know it helps doctors.
Right. Hey, by the way, folks, if you want to ask Dr. Vickie any questions, I don't know how much time she's got left, but you can tap on the question box. I'm looking at the question box right now, so I'll see your questions as they come in. Meanwhile, Dr. Vickie, you came up with an idea. What's that?
Patrick, excuse me, I've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay, good. All right, well, we'll just, you just tell me when you got to go, say goodbye, and that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I understand. Well, I'm showing here on the screen the letter that you came up with, Dr. Vickie, and I think this will add it doubles the value of the book, because since their name's on the cover of the book, wouldn't it be nice to have a letter from a doctor introducing that licensee to one of their prospective doctors that they're talking to, and that's what you came up with here. By the way, I took what you gave me there in the email that you just sent like 20 minutes ago and stuck it in this, so that's what I actually have here on the screen.
Oh my goodness. I hope I didn't make any stupid mistakes with grammar or anything.
I checked it.
Good.
But folks, I was so excited about this. On this webinar, I thought I would introduce this. We've never shown this before. It's brand new. We just came up with it. Dr. Vickie, you were down here at our offices about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you said, why don't we have a letter from me on my letterhead that's introducing that person to the doctor that they're trying to connect with? And it just made such huge sense to me. Now, I've got the letter here on the screen, and I thought I would read it to them, but Dr. Vickie, I'm going to show a little video here that we can kind of play, and if you need to go while the video is playing, even, that's fine. I just wanted you to at least hear what these other doctors had to say. So since I was going to tell them that we're not only hearing from you as a doctor, but I've got some other doctors who want to say some things about why they outsource their billing. So do you mind if I switch to that and play that just a second?
Oh, please do. Please.
All right, I got to do one other thing here, and that's to turn my mic towards my speakers here so that it'll come through, because I haven't figured out how to play this correctly, but I think it'll be a little, jerky here of the people's faces. Their voices probably won't match their faces, but I think you'll appreciate hearing from these other doctors, folks, in just a couple minutes here.
On a day-to-day basis, practicing, I have a ton of paperwork. I have charts that have office notes from patients I see. I have follow-up lab reports, test reports. So a lot of time is spent not only seeing patients, but doing the paperwork that goes along with that. So probably for every hour I see patients, I'm spending at least 30 minutes worth of paperwork.
The complications of trying to do your own billing are greater than anything we do in medicine. It seems like with over 30 different insurance companies that we probably bill from, not even including our uninsured patients, there's absolutely no way. You don't have a chance.
And then when you submit a claim, it has to be a clean claim for them to even consider it. And you have to do it within 90 days. Doing my own billing was horribly tedious and very time-consuming.
To combat the problem, many medical practices and healthcare facilities are seeking help. by outsourcing medical billing. When medical providers outsource their billing, it makes them and their staff, of course, more efficient. It frees up their time so they can spend more quality time with their patients. And, of course, it increases their cash flow, which is what it's all about. And for the patients, of course, the patients are getting to spend more quality time with the doctor and the staff because the doctor and the staff are not having to spend all that time filing the insurance claims and doing the paperwork up front.
We have, as physicians, so many things to worry about. We have to be good business people. We have to be good patient advocates. We have so much on our plate. I go home and I do not worry about this, the most important aspect of our lives. We can't be good physicians unless we're financially solvent. At this day and age, with the complexities of the insurance companies, I can't imagine doing it any other way at this point.
The process for the Medicare billing is, with the electronic claims, is very difficult unless you outsource, because to do that in your office takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money to buy the software to do the electronic claims. So you pretty much have to outsource to save yourself money, basically.
From a billing standpoint, I have outsourced my billing. This allows me to not have to provide the overhead of an individual that I would have to pay to do my coding, do my billing, make sure that we're compliant with all of the regulations from Medicare and the other health insurance companies.
We've all been in this business for a while. We've all had our ups and downs with different billers. Finding a different biller, as we say, is like finding a good physician.
When you outsource your billing, you have to choose a company where you can track what's happening with each and every account. The billing company I use has the ability for me to check this online 24/7 at my convenience.
The person that we outsource our billing to has a wonderful online system, so we can check on claims, we can update patient information, we can input information into that, so that has made it very good.
None of us physicians really feel comfortable with the follow-up if anybody's not paying or unable to pay, but it's still part of fact of life, and that's what they do. They can go after it. They can make any kind of suggestions as far as payments over months, X, Y, and Z, and it just takes me away from that and lets me again concentrate on either doing the business of medicine or further educations or just having a free time.
When I outsourced my billing, I was able to give my headaches to them and deal with the insurance company when they deny. Why did they deny? What is it that we need to correct? It doesn't have to be my personal headache.
Our focus is to do medicine, not billing.
A good physician has to be a good businessman. A good businessman has to decide, when to delegate responsibilities.
Outsourcing has allowed me to get better reimbursement on my claims because I have a whole billing company behind me to check things and take care of that.
Outsourcing has allowed me to spend more time taking care of patients while not worrying about the headaches that are involved with billing and the regulations that go with it.
Dr. Vickie, had you ever heard that? Have I ever shown that to you?
I'm here. I heard it. I think that is completely awesome. And, I don't know if you've ever been in the situation where you sort of struggled with something and then suddenly somebody comes along and makes it better. And it's sort of like, oh, I can't believe how tough that's been for me. Yeah. And that's what the licensees do. I mean, once this is under control, it makes such a huge difference in doctors' lives.
Yes. Well, Dr. Vickie, thank you so much for taking your time there at that conference to be on the call here today. I know the folks on here appreciate that very much.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to really describe what a great business opportunity this is. Licensees make a real difference in doctors' lives and make a big difference in their family, too. So thanks, Patrick.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Bye. Well, I guess, folks, we're going to go on, and I'm going to show you this letter here, by the way, because I want you to know how powerful this can be. Now, this is a subject to change, of course, but she came up with this just a while ago, and I thought, well, I might as well just show it because, wow, listen to this. Okay, so the letter that you would have as one of our licensees, once you graduate from our training, you'll be issued a letter that looks similar to this that's on Dr. Vickie Rackner's letterhead. So it goes along with the book. Can you imagine a doctor getting the book? The letter is stuck inside the book, or it's mail will show you how to get it to the doctor and put it on their desk. And along with the book, it says, "Dear physician, are you leaving money on the exam table?" Through running my own surgical practice, I discovered the critical importance of keeping track of how money flows in and out of your practice. You might be surprised to learn that doctors in private practice, on average, walk away from about 30% of their income. The most common cause, failure to collect their hard-earned fees. Today, I call on my experiences as a surgeon in private practice and on the clinical faculty at the University of Washington School of Medicine and serial entrepreneur to help physicians thrive. My organization, Thriving Doctors, and my goal is to help physicians in private practice achieve the personal, professional, and financial goals that attracted them to a career in medicine. Here's the second half. Today, my colleague, now this is where your name would be, right? My colleague, Susan Smith of Acme Medical Consultants, or whatever your company name will be, shares my commitment to helping physicians in private practice retain their autonomy. That is why she's offering you the enclosed gift, a book co-authored by Patrick Phillips, the CEO of MIRMA, the nation's largest network of medical revenue management companies, to which Susan belongs as well, and myself. I'm so impressed with the leadership, vision, and value of MIRMA that I accepted their invitation to serve as the chair of their advisory board. I hope that you find value in this book. If you would like to find out just how much lost revenue you could recover each month, Susan would be happy to perform a complimentary practice analysis. Simply call her and then your phone number will be right there. Isn't that awesome? I'm just blown away by this idea that was not mine. Dr. Vickie came up with it. That's not really her signature, by the way. We just faked that for the picture here. But look at the PS. Do you feel like you are struggling to keep from getting further behind? You're not alone. I'm available for a complimentary 15-minute phone call to discuss how to get off the hamster wheel and step back into the dream that attracted you to a career in medicine. Now, folks, it doesn't get any better than this. You not only got a letter from Dr. Vickie that you can give to your doctors that are prospective clients, but she's offering her time, 15 minutes of her time, and I can tell you that's worth a lot of money per hour that she charges for her consulting. But she's willing to give that to your prospective clients in order to talk specifically to them about why they should be outsourcing their billing to you. So anyway, folks, I just thought I'd show that to you because I thought, I can't hold that back very long. By the way, I haven't even introduced this to our network of licensees since we just came up with it. We're going to do a webinar here soon about that, but I just thought I would show that. Now,